3 years ago, I was making $30,000 per month with my consulting agency, but I was absolutely miserable. On the surface, it looked like I was being a successful business owner, but in reality, I was hustling 80 hours per week just to keep it from falling apart. And it felt as if I've just trapped myself in some sort of expensive prison and shackled myself in a pair of golden handcuffs. The moment I stopped working, the business would stop working. And that was the bottleneck of everything. Clients onboarding, follow-ups, strategy calls, outreaches, checking DMs like every single 15 minutes, and I was just stuck on a treadmill. And that was pretty much my reality until I discovered a system that allowed my business to literally run itself, giving me time back to work out, enjoy date nights, go on guilt-free vacations, and do daily deep work to grow my business as the visionary CEO rather than a chief everything officer. And this isn't some fancy high-tech funnel or complicated tech stack made up of 30 different AI tools or software. So whether you're making low six figures as a solopreneur or looking to scale up to 7 figures or beyond with a company, you can install this simple set of systems in your business and start getting time back starting today. And I'm going to share with you exactly how to do that. So let's dive in. So I want to start off by sharing with you the Barbell Framework, which is actually a framework used by investors to measure portfolio in a way that allows them to maximize returns whilst minimizing risk. And the reason why I want to begin with this framework is because our ability to get paid as entrepreneurs is in direct proportion to our ability to shoulder risk and, most importantly, leverage risk in our favor. So let's break down this model. On the one hand, there is the core operating model, and that is the part of your business that is predictably generating profits and revenue in a way that is consistent so that you can actually afford to take big swings. And on the other hand, the big swings will be the ideas, ventures, or projects that, when made work, will allow your business to 10x by itself. And the reason why this model is so powerful is because this will position you as if you are in a casino in Las Vegas and on a betting table where you have a 10% chance of making a 10x return. Like if you only have, let's say, 3 tries to make a 10x return, then that is pretty risky because you just run out of money. But if you have a slot machine where you can just pull chips from and take infinite bets, then you'll become unstoppable and it will become inevitable for you to make money in a compounding manner. And this is why we want to do whatever it takes to create a core model that will allow us to take infinite big swings. And most importantly, a core model that runs on itself without us having to be on a hustle hamster wheel. So this might sound like a big endeavor, but from experience, what I can say is that 90% of entrepreneurs can actually build this core operating model within 90 days. So here's an example, okay? The first thing we need to do here is to take your lifestyle expense and business expense and add them together to get your total expense. So let's say your total expense is $20,000 per month. Then your goal here is to raise your MRR to 20,000 or more so that you can comfortably cover your lifestyle and business expenses without having to hustle to get more clients. And most importantly, you can then invest into building systems and processes to fulfill clients who can pay you 20,000 MRR without churning on autopilot. And this does 2 things. Number 1, it leaves you with 0 stress on having to hustle to stay profitable and get clients all the time. And number 2, you invest all the free time and profits into growing the business without any risk of pulling the rug from underneath you or betting the farm away. So unless you're a WNBA player living on 95,000 rent on a 72,000 salary, this shouldn't be hard for you at all. As long as you use a system that I will share with you, you can definitely build out the core operating model of your barbell within the next 90 days. So let's dive in and share with you exactly how to do that. First things first, we can do so by referencing what I call the idea to asset hourglass. So to explain this, we've got to understand that most entrepreneurs stay poor because all they do is to search online, hunt for shiny objects, come up with some ideas, but do nothing about it. So if you are watching this video, I will assume that you already have an idea that's working, and most importantly, you're executing upon a strategy that allows you to get a return in income from the time and effort that you're putting into your business. But what you want to do here is not stop the moment where you can trade time for money. What you want to do here is to create leverage so you can trade less time for more money, more income, and more impact. So we do that by mapping out your strategy so that the strategy itself does not live in your brain, but it actually sits in well-documented processes and SOPs, which you can then use to delegate to people, automations, and contractor and systems. And what you want to do next is to create a feedback loop to track the performance of these people and the effectiveness of these processes, so that as you optimize both people and process, you can end up with a business that works more like a process-driven asset rather than a labor-driven vehicle. And that will allow you to scale output whilst minimizing time input. And this is what leverage is made out of. So now comes the question, how can we actually proceed to the second half of the idea to asset hourglass? So the best way for us to do so is to not go ahead and just shop for some random AI tools or software or hire random contractors, because that's just a recipe for information overwhelm and you burning a hole in your bank account. So quoting Ryan Dice, good people don't fix broken systems. Broken systems break good people. So rather than going ahead and randomly hiring contractors and freelancers or randomly shopping for tools and AI or all of these AI apps out there, let's go ahead and work backwards. So what we want to do here is to begin with a goal in mind, and I'm going to share with you how to use this framework. So first of all, let's say your goal is to generate 100,000 per month in revenue at a 50% margin and working no more than 20 hours per week. Then what you want to do here is to then break down your targets and ask yourself, in order for me to hit this goal, what must be true? And these metrics can be either quantitative or qualitative. So quantitative targets will be accumulative metrics such as sales generated, leads generated, clients enrolled, so on and so forth. And qualitative metrics, on the other hand, are metrics that measures the effectiveness of your business. And these can be close rates, client churn, cost per lead, audience to lead ratio, so on and so forth. So as you go ahead and define these metrics across the 4 departments of your business, marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations, what you want to do next is to identify all of the recurring tasks. Again, you want to identify all of the recurring tasks that needs to happen on a consistent basis in order for all of these 4 departments to achieve their metrics in a predictable and consistent manner. So for example, some recurring tasks for marketing can be content production, content distribution, content editing, and launching a certain amount of new ad creatives and ad campaigns on a monthly or weekly basis. And for fulfillment, recurring tasks can be weekly client check-ins, you maintaining group coaching calls if you run group coaching, or making sure that every single client gets through onboarding in a timely manner and minimizes their time and value on a certain time frame. So again, these recurring tasks, it really depends on the offer that you run and your business and the business model that you have. But what you want to do here is to list out all of the recurring tasks and see what needs to happen on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis in order for a business to be maintained, and most importantly, generate the amount of income that you want in a predictable manner without you having to work crazy hours. And speaking of not working crazy hours to maintain these metrics and maintain these recurring tasks, what you want to do next is to map out either processes or SOPs that can then be used to delegate these tasks to virtual assistants or contractors or team members. So what you want to pay attention to is the difference between a process and an SOP. A process is a documentation of what needs to happen in order for something to be brought from point A to point B, and point B being the point where something is done. And SOPs, on the other hand, are documentations on how to execute each step along the process so that the process can be done in a timely and effective manner. So what you want to do here is to decide what task requires a process and what task just requires an SOP. So for example, let's say one of the recurring tasks would be sending outreaches. You don't really need to have a whole process mapped out to teach somebody to send outreaches, because that task is pretty linear and you only take and there's no decision making involved or minimal decision making involved, and you can just repeat that manually in a very repetitive manner. But on the other hand, let's say you have a recurring task that goes along the lines of onboarding new clients to your retainer program. Then what you have to do here is not just build an SOP, or else that SOP will be 4 or 5 pages long and it would not be used by anybody because it's just overwhelming. What you want to do here is to break down the onboarding process into what I call a process map that looks like this. So I'm not going to go deep into exactly how to create process maps, because I have another video that I can just put in the description below for you to check out that covers process mapping. But in a nutshell, a process map involves these few components. There's the trigger, there's the decision branch, and there are the steps that needs to be executed for each decision branch. And then these decisions and these steps will eventually lead to an end goal, which is the outcome or the process being completed. So what you want to do here is to first map out what needs to happen along the process, and then for each step along the process, if this is a process that is more complicated, more technical, or a process that isn't something that you can just hand off without any explanations, you want to build SOPs that are impossible to not understand, so that you can hand off one step along the process at a time, and eventually reach a point where the whole process, whether it be email management, calendar management, client onboarding, whatever it is, can be simply executed by your team member without you having to do anything yourself. So this brings us well into the delegation phase of the idea to asset hourglass. So now that you have the idea, you have the strategy, your executing the strategy is proven to work, and now you have a map of what needs to be done to maintain a strategy to achieve your outcomes. Then what we want to do here is to go into the optimization phase. And this is where we measure the performance of your processes and your people in relation to your quantitative and qualitative metrics. So quoting Carl Pearson, what gets tracked improves. And when performance is tracked and reported back, the rate of improvements accelerates. So what you want to do here is to create what I call a CEO dashboard, which is more or less like a scorecard that allows you to, in one glance, know exactly how well or how not so well your business is doing. And what I like to do here is to create a template and define my evergreen metrics, my North Star metrics, and and the main metrics for the main departments of my business, which is marketing, sales, fulfillment, and finances. So as you go ahead and create a tracking system and prioritize the metrics that you want to focus on for this particular season in your business, what you want to then go ahead and build a tracker that specifically tracks the metrics for each specific department or category of your business. So for example, for me, on top of this central CEO dashboard, I have a tracker for my SDR or my sales development rep. Some people call it an appointment setter, for them to fill in the sales metrics. I have metrics for my content and the campaigns I'm running with advertising, and I have metrics for client success and for my VA team as well. So again, however you build these trackers out, it really depends on your business model, and it really depends on what matters most to you at the moment. But everything should eventually end up in a feedback loop where you can, in one glance, know exactly what is being done by your people executing a process and what kind of results are they producing. Because if they are producing results that actually matches up with your targets quantitatively and qualitatively, you can just scale up the process and validate your vehicle. But if, let's say, some metrics are off the mark and the targets are not being hit, then rather than going ahead and hustling harder and diving into firefighting mode and being the chief everything officer and just work yourself to death, What you're gonna do instead is to be the strategic general and look at the specific bottleneck that needs to be refined. And when you do that, all you're gonna do is to, rather than hustle, you can just change the process or optimize the people and coach up your team members so that they can execute a more effective process more efficiently at a higher quality to a point where the metrics are hit and they can scale up, and you can then, again, end up with a completed idea to asset hourglass. So this model by itself, again, I'm going to just grab the link of this Canva board and put it in the link in the description below, and you can study it in your own time. But I would highly recommend you to go through this practice to build your core operating model, because again, a well-built barbell will allow your business to be anti-fragile and allow you to take infinite big swings and be the visionary without having to worry about you running out of money or running out of time. So this is how you build a business that runs itself. For some of you, this might be a lot to take in, especially when you're busy and new to systems building. But what I'd like to do is to invite you to see time as an asset rather than a finite resource. For example, you can either spend 10 hours per week doing client onboarding and trade the same amount of time for the same amount of output. Or you can spend 10 hours per week to develop the SOPs and processes that will allow you to delegate client onboarding to someone else, which saves you 10 hours per week whilst keeping the business growing. And for me, my favorite way to approach this is to go ahead and hire offshore virtual assistants based in the Philippines. And the reason why is because not only are they cost efficient, but they are also the most hardworking, service-minded, and consistent people that I've ever come across in terms of culture. So if you want to check out my video on how to cultivate self-managing virtual assistants and train them to delegate daily operations from our shoulders without having to micromanage or put out fires all the time, simply check out the link in the description below, and then just share with you my whole process from hiring to onboarding to developing rock stars that manage themselves. So this is the difference between trading time for money and creating leverage to compound freedom and money over time. So using the idea to Asset Hourglass, I now have systems for content creation, client acquisition, client delivery, operations, finances, and basically every area of my business. And they all work together seamlessly. But just like everyone else, I started with 0 systems and doing everything all by myself. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I know most people who watch this video will just go by their day and do nothing with what I've just shared. But if you are not like most people, let me give you another reason to start building your barbell framework. And that is that there is nothing more expensive than wasting time hustling on the wrong things. Because every day you spend trapped in your business is a day that you're not building the life that you actually want. And every week you delay implementing systems is another week of being the bottleneck of your own success. So I think about all the entrepreneurs I know who are still grinding 80 hours per week and still hustling to keep up with expenses month to month to month and never being able to take a real vacation. And the reason why is not because they don't have the knowledge or they don't have skills. They have the knowledge and have the skills, but they don't have the systems to create leverage with the time. So don't let that be you. The idea that you have to hustle to a certain point before buying back time is just not true. And the fact is that you deserve to experience time freedom as an entrepreneur, no matter whether you're doing low 6 figures or 7 figures or beyond. But the truth is that you'll never be able to experience freedom until you make the decision to start doing so. So the answer is not more sales, not more ad spend, not more marketing. It's more operational leverage. So let's make today day 1 rather than waiting for that one day. Not when you hit your next revenue goal, not when you have more free time, and not when the conditions are perfect, because it never will be. So to sum everything up, here's how to start. Step 1, block off time to actually implement what I've just shared. Number 2, write out your big goals, reverse engineer it into key metrics, and figure out all the recurring tasks that need to be done to achieve these metrics, but do not need to be done by you. So figure out the recurring tasks that give the lowest value, but drain the most amount of energy from you, then proceed to prioritize delegating those tasks. And once you free up time, reinvest a portion of that time to delegate the next batch of tasks and the next and the next and the next. So eventually, you'll be able to end up with a core operating model that gives you full coverage of your business and lifestyle expenses without you having to spend any time maintaining that side of your barbell. So if you've made it to this part of the video, I just want to say I really want you to win. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to simply drop it in the comments and I'll answer them, and I might even share with you some SOPs, frameworks, or templates that will help you build your barbell more efficiently and effectively. So let's hop off the treadmill and start building freedom flywheels. Your future self will thank you for it, and I'll see you on the next video.